Welcome to Lost Without Japan, a travel podcast about the life-changing experiences of exploring Japan and those moments we would be lost without. For your listening pleasure, allow me to introduce your very own Kanko Guido, Michael.
Welcome to this week's episode of the award winning podcast, Lost Without Japan, a podcast focused on Japan and your Lost Without moments that has been running bi weekly now for basically 5 years as of this summer. This is your director of travel for TKIC Studio Productions, bringing you positive thoughts and excitement for your upcoming journey to Japan as well as his own return in 2 summers. We'd like to thank you for giving us a bit of your time today and truly hope the podcast finds you in a good place or on the path to a better one, no matter how it may seem at this moment. If you're new to the podcast and joining us from the Podranker article listing this show as a best of Japan travel podcast for 2026, welcome. If you're a returning Lost Without listener, thank you again for your time and for returning once more. You know where the scones are, and you're always welcome to them. Today's episode involves a topic I am revisiting almost 5 years later, as I've been struggling a bit myself with everything that's been happening to me over the last year plus financially, and getting myself refocused by kind of reviewing tips and tricks that have worked, do work for myself, for family members, for people that I know, friends, coworkers that I've helped get to Japan for their first time, or kind of talk them into going once again. I'm always that person for you if you need that. But on top of that, um, we're going to be celebrating that award that I mentioned just a moment ago, a little bit later for Best Travel Podcast on Japan. But the topic that I kind of want to talk to you all about today, again, is for those of you that have not made it to Japan yet or are, you know, looking to go back again. And that's it. Just sometimes we all need a helping hand, or in some cases, a kick in the butt as well. um, my how having a family, a career, working multiple jobs, and just really life in general can make time pass by so quickly. And you can find yourself suddenly into a new routine, and life can quickly start to pass you by. And suddenly, looking to have that trip be in 2 years, as I was finding myself being able to kind of save for. No frills, on those trips, but I was able to make it kind of every 2 years. Um, yeah, it's when things begin to happen that instead of saving on that regular basis, all the money's going elsewhere. What can we do when those things pop up? And what helped me break the cycle to begin with? Well, first off, it was really a discussion that I had with my dad. And, this was of big importance for me back in 2015. I'd went to Japan with Japan Fulbright Memorial Fund prior to this, but there had been quite a gap in me returning. And I was looking, and I don't know if you're the same as me. And if you're listening, I bet you are, and a chunk of you are. And you kind of look at airfare and kind of, do this as something to where you're like, I wonder what prices are going to be this summer. Are they the same? What are they for spring? And I kind of look at different dates. And I found airfare back in 2015 that was like over 800 bucks, but under nine round trip to and from Japan. And it was with Asiana at the time. And that was huge because so much of what had been happening before, pricing and things like that, was easily over. I want to say at least over 1,300, and I want to say that it was closer to 1,800, if not $2,000. And my, how things have changed back to that almost in some regards now. But being flexible with your travel dates can really open up some cheaper dates to you. And I really encourage, if you have the ability to do so, to look at different times throughout the year. I'm stuck to traveling during the summer if I want something more than just a week in Japan. And when you travel to and from Japan, and you're traveling halfway around the world, you're going to find that you lose, easily 3 days, right? You lose the, basically the 14 and a half hours of time automatically when you're going to Japan, with your flight. And that's one if it's fairly direct, for you, and you're not going to Korea first or landing in Canada and things like that. You have, time change that does that as well, and you're basically already out a day before you do anything. And, when you arrive, some of you are going to be raring to go. I unfortunately struggle to sleep most of the times, and I'm looking to stay up until I can go to bed. And then that last day, when you are flying out, there's really not much that you can do on that day, especially if you're flying, in the middle of the day or early on. So just another day that's out there. So long story short, put myself to the summer because that's when I can at least get a couple of weeks of time. And with me looking to go with my daughter, that's what I'm going to be doing. We're going to be hitting kind of those golden route places in part with Tokyo and Osaka. But that's going to be some different trips in that case. I mean, there's some things that are going to be we have to do in Tokyo that my daughter wants to do that are like the big tourist. If you go to Japan, you have to do, like you have to, you feel you do if you're like a fan of anime and different things of that way. So going to Akiba and walking around with them will be fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. But both of us are not ones for like too much crowds. So I know we're going to be going north and making some art glass, and that's really for those of you joining the show. A kind of a focus of the show and getting outside those tourist things that you normally see and do, and getting you to have some experiences that are going to be something you remember for quite some time. But like I said, kind of looping back in, what broke my cycle back in 2015 was telling my dad about that flight. And I was fortunate enough at that point in time to have my dad say, "Well, Mike, you seem to talk about going back to Japan a lot. You talk with me about airfare and things like that. Are you really going to go, or are you just going to continue to hem and haw about this return trip back to Japan that you've been talking about forever?" And um, I said, "No, Dad. This time I'm pretty serious about it. The pricing's pretty low. I really do want to do it. And, this is one of the things where, it's fortunate in fact that my dad and my mom were both like, hey, buy your ticket. Here's my credit card info, buy the ticket. And I did. And I was thankful. And my dad's like, you booked your trip. Now you got to figure out how you're actually, gonna like, you're basically coming up with the money for when you're there and what you want to do. So that made it real. And, you know, on my multiple return trips, back, um, basically just going that once and being successful in going once and being back in my favorite place in the world and where I'm going to end up retiring to, um, kind of, stoke that fire and was basically like, once I was there, I'm like, I want to do this again. And, it led to, me going back basically every 2 years. And like I said, pricing has come down a bit since I went last to, Japan. I went out to go meet my son. And my son and I, when we did our trip, our flights were closer to that, like 2000 mark, and I want to say we were like 2200, something like that, and maybe 2300, because I like to fly economy plus, just for that little bit of leg room. It makes a difference. It does. And yeah, right now, economy plus from Chicago to Hiroshima actually is between $1,700 and $2,000 for the summer. And I discovered that, and I was doing some lunch prep for the show for today, and that's a great price considering what pricing and things has been. And kind of looking at those things are one of the things that helps continue me to be motivated, especially when I'm heading off to my night job at my second job. And that's like sometimes we need that. We need that, like, hey, why am I going to do this again? Besides the fact that I have to, you know. But seeing that pricing and things gives me hope for the 2 summers of time that be a little bit better for my daughter and I hope around that time for our flights. That one trip that I ended up purchasing tickets for ended up happening, led to a return back in 2019, 2022, 2024. And, it's just led to me being a tour guide at times and taking my friends and different people around. And also just me getting some time by myself. But really, whether you go by yourself or you go with friends or with family that you love, that you're going to be building some truly core memories for yourself. And when I was growing up, I moved so much that nowhere really ended up feeling like home to me because I literally moved every year to 2 years. And that was just kind of what we did. And strange, one of those things that you end up having. But finding myself in Hiroshima as the city itself has led me to feeling like I've found my home, my next home. It's led to friendships that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and especially friendships that you could end up, finding for yourself. Like you could find that special place for you. And I have friends that run Bar 31, and also Hell's Chicken is the English kind of translation of things. And I recommend both of those to you, when you visit. And I recommend Hiroshima as a whole. But now that I've kind of talked a little bit myself and kind of like that, what got me going. And then once I started going again, I was hooked. And I feel for most people I talk to, and probably a lot of you listening to the show, you're going to go once if you haven't been already, and you're going to want to go again. It's just how it's going to be. And so let's focus on you now. What are some steps that you can take to create or plan your own trip to Japan? And my first step that I have for you is opening a second account at a credit union or a bank that you don't currently bank at. Say, Mike, I have an account, at a bank. Why don't I just open like maybe a second one or something like that? And why are you telling me to do it for a separate bank? Well, one of the reasons I recommend doing that is that second account is going to become your savings. Basically, what you're going to use to fund your trip, purchase your airfare. So when you do, you need to make sure that your bank or credit union's ATM card works in Japan and kind of compare different rates for using your card in Japan because it's not all the same. And one of the things why I say to have it at a separate account is this. From your day to day things that you do when bills happen, life events happen, dentist office happen, car repairs happen, just life in general, you're looking at one like account and you're like, hey, I've got to come up with the money with these things from it. If you have a second account that is not something that you're looking at, when you log into your bank, you don't see a second account. You don't see that second account money. It's kind of one of those like out of sight, out of mind things, and will allow for you to save to go through. Take that card out of your, purse, your wallet, your persons, and leave it kind of in your, travel wallet, your passport wallet, whatever it is there, and have that be something that is, like I said, out of sight, out of mind. And we're going to use that to help save and start a savings and begin collecting some money for you to make that trip. And on top of that, you're not just creating an account that you have to physically put money into yourself. What I would recommend doing is if your workplace offers direct deposit, um, mine ends up letting me do two separate accounts with my account or with my check. And what I do is I put an amount into my travel fund, and the rest goes into my account that I use for my day to day things and bills and life in general. And, if you don't see it and it's not in that, like the deposit of things that's there, again, it doesn't matter what the amount is. If you're taking $10 from your paycheck, if you're taking 20, if you're able to do 50 a paycheck, whatever it is, the amount doesn't matter. What matters is that you're doing it. Starting and as you do it, like honestly, even if it's, $20, right? If you go throughout the year, um, that's $40 a month. Um, that is, going to be $480 in a year. And when you start seeing that amount in there, you're going to start looking at those small purchases that you make on a daily basis. Grabbing coffee, grabbing some fast food, and you're going to begin to be like, rather than getting coffee right now or stopping here to grab a sandwich or whatever, I'm just going to take that money instead that I do have and put it into the other account for my trip, deposit using, your ATM card. And I'm going to go home, do my food, and things that I had set up for me and not, you know, spending the money on that. Now, does that mean I'm going to be telling you, hey, you can never spend money on anything except for savings for your trip? Of course not. But like it really does, especially when you've finally got enough money to purchase that airfare. Once you have that airfare, it is real. You have to come up with lodging. You need to come up with money for your food and things that's there. So, you'll be even more into it at that time and you're going to be excited. It's not like some sort of daunting task. It's going to be like, man, I have this. I'm excited. I'm going to be going to Japan. It's here. Let's do it. And if you do $50 a paycheck, that is, $100 a month, and that is $1,200 in a year. And in 2 years, that's $2,400. And if airfare is, let's say, still around $2,000 and, that 2 years, time frame, and I hope that it's gone down, you not only have your airfare, you have $400 on top of that to put towards lodging. And that's great. And that's me looking at pricing from the Midwest, to, Japan. And for those of you that are on the coast or closer, it's going to be less, right? Some of you have discount to Zip Air and all those different discount airlines and things, or you may have points or things that you have, and that's awesome. Um, you know, I'd take it too. Take it too. So with all of that, okay, you've created a separate account. You've done a direct deposit. You're having money pulled from. Mike, isn't Japan expensive? That is a question that more than one person has asked me in our time, especially when we're talking about trips, right? But Japan can be as expensive or inexpensive as you want to make it. Here's how I ended up laying out my first trip. kind of look at a week or two or more. And let me tell you this, 1 week is better than no weeks, right? And if that's all you can do because of constraints with the job and savings and whatever, do it. Because I guarantee you, after you've gone for that week, you're going to want to do longer and you're going to want to do it again, or just do another week trip, right? It's going to do that. Um, but more allows for you to take your time, explore some more, and of course, kind of slow your roll, slow your pace and things. And one thing that Maurice always and I say is make the trip your own. I at in the past I had a chance, when I was in Hiroshima, to stay there, in Japan and things like that. Some places outside of Tokyo, and I had like 2 weeks of lodging that I found that was, in Hiroshima for $450, through, like, different sites that end up like your Airbnbs and other things like that, that of the hosting sites and things like that, that I could have stayed through, and that's something that I could have, shared with someone else or by myself and cut it down some more. And was that something that had a lot of thrills to it? No. Did that place that I ended up staying at times on my trip when I was going by myself, allow for me to reach out my arms and touch both sides of, one wall and the other of the place I was staying in? Sure did. But did it really matter? No. Again, you're there. And most of the time, you're going to be out and about walking and exploring. You need a place to lay down at night. You need a place for you to shower. You need a place to kind of put your things so you're not having to carry them all, around with you. Um, and if you're able and you're getting closer, or you see towards your trip that you've saved more or spent less than what you thought you would, and you want to splurge on something else and have a fancier time at that point in time, go for it. Right. One other thing that I would have normally have talked about in the past, and this is especially true of 5 years, like going on 5 years ago when I recorded something similar to this last time, I talked a lot about the JRL pass because it was a huge savings. And if you missed out on that, I apologize. It is still a thing, but you truly need to plan out your trip and see what you're doing because it is no longer that like slam dunk automatic. I've saved some money. What's going to end up being, happening and things like that. Like I'm just going to have, outrageous, price thing and be able to travel all around and not even have to worry about the pricing and things for it. You do now, and it may not be worth your time. When I went my last time, I still did the week, because it was worth it to me, because I was doing a silly trip, like some might say, but it was what I wanted to do. I wanted to catch a concert. I wanted to spend Thanksgiving with my son, and I ended up going from like flying into Osaka. I ended up going to Kyoto by train, and then from Kyoto to Aomori, which is northern Japan, 10 hours of trains and things like that, Shinkansen stuff, just to shoot back into Hiroshima. And I easily cleared the value of what I had just because of the long distance travel I had. So look for it for you. Plan when you do, but probably you're not going to have it be, something you have for your entire trip. So just, kind of look at it. How do I check that, Mike? Well, I like to use Rome to Rio or Google Maps to check pricing and routes ahead of time to see what I'm doing. When you do that, though, especially Google Maps, put in a time that makes it a correct time that you'll be traveling in Japan. What I mean by that, if you sit down at 5 p.m. or 4 p.m., during your lunch, you won't necessarily see everything. So make sure the time is what it needs to be for Japan, and it is the following day, so that when you're looking at options and things, you really see what's happening and change that time around. Because at a time where I booked lodging, and it was, I want to say, it was about like 45 minutes from downtown Tokyo. And I'm like, that's not too bad. I'll hop on a train, not a big deal. Well, I didn't check, what happens after, like the rush is done. And it turns out that after that rush of people leaving work, my stop would be skipped. And I had to actually go past my where my stop was, wait at the next station for a while, and then return back on another trip. But it was like that 45-minute trip became an hour and a half. And by the time I got back to where I was going, that happened every day that I was there. That's not where you want to be. It's a mistake you make once, right? Try weekends. If I think I'm going to be there on Saturday, look at it at Saturday. If I'm going to be going to this museum or I'm going to Osaka's aquarium or whatever it is, pretend you're going, see what's there, and see does that lodging actually work? Do I need to leave earlier than I thought? From my event or to get to where I'm going, it's huge. And one thing that I'd kind of say is that Japan can be whatever you want it to be. You could just fly into Tokyo if that's what you're into and spend a whole week there and go nowhere else and have a blast. Your time is limited. Into Osaka and out of Tokyo, or into Tokyo and out of Osaka. If you're going to be going to Kyoto in Osaka, and you're kind of doing those golden route of things, you're just going north and south, that can allow you to have some extra time. Because what you don't want to do is fly into Tokyo. If you're short on time, go do what you're doing out in Osaka, Kyoto, Fukuoka, whatever it is. And then when you're done, have to shoot all the way back to Tokyo. Be much better if you're just already there. You don't have to waste a day of your time traveling and you get an extra day to do some things and have some fun. Okay. Um, and it is okay to just do one city. After my daughter and I do our trip, in 2 summers. I'm gonna have a trip where I'm gonna be based out of Hiroshima, and that's what it's gonna be. I'll hit some areas around there, but Hiroshima is gonna be my base of operations, and I'm gonna be blissfully happy, just having it be that. Seeing some friends, who, some of which are kind of, extended family. It's wonderful, okay? And if you're gonna be, flying into, Tokyo is a lot of different places now. You have Haneda, you have Narita, in Osaka, you have a couple different airports as well, Kicks. Like I said, I've actually seen kind of pricing go down a bit. And think about like if I really wanted to be in Hiroshima or you really want to be someplace, see if you can get your flight to go directly there. If that's not, too much time in the air. But just being there, and then crashing like just putting your bags, showering, and going to bed, getting something to eat. When you wake up the following day, you're going to be where you want to be, and you don't have to spend time traveling again after you were just done traveling. So, just things that I would say. One other thing, especially for those of you that have Apple iPhone, add that Swooka card. Um, start putting some money into it. You can put up to basically um, 20,000 yen, which is like $150 right now. In another year or so, that limit's going to be removed, and you could kind of add some more to it. But I'm going to tell you, even if you don't have that card, you can go on Klook or various other sites, KLOOK, and sign up to get that Suka card as something that you just pick up right away from your airport as you're getting off with some funds already on it. But you're going to use those cards everywhere, convenience stores, some chain restaurants, and especially when you're using your trains, especially in Tokyo. It's invaluable. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And basically, your budget can be whatever you want it to be, make the trip yours. But I like to budget myself $100 a day, and that's for food, expenses, and that's it. That's me doing some things, that's me eating. And what I find, a chunk of the time is that I don't use the full amount that I had. And then towards the end of my trip, I have kind of a collection of money that could be going towards purchasing some things that I have my eye on, or just carrying back home if you do have money left over, and putting it towards your next trip. You already have some savings, and that's not a bad thing. If you're like me, you are going to be out and about wanting to see everything that you want to see. And depending on the place that you have, location is truly the most important thing. You need a shower, like I said, restroom, but location matters. At least for me, it may not for you. You want the bougier place, I'd say, but really, you're going to find that that hour doesn't sound bad coming and going. If you're, staying somewhere and you're like, oh, it's not bad transit. I do this on the regular in a car. It's going to matter. It's your vacation. Try to get as close as you can. One other thing that I have when I'm going out and about exploring Japan is I use a lot of Google Maps to get around. I also use the taxi app Go Taxi. There's other apps that I use as well. Some things for translation, some things for hiking. There's a bunch of things that you can have. But one thing that you're definitely going to need is a battery for your phone, some sort of charging bank. It's huge. I have 2 that I walk around with under the guise that I'm only gonna use 1. And, I will tell you, they can be heavy, and towards the end of your trip, you might be like, "Hey, Mike, I'm gonna step out for the moment. I'm gonna go into town, and, I'm not gonna bring my battery. My phone's at 100%. I'll be good." And that's, my friend, is where I'll tell you a quick story about myself and that mistake that I made and kind of, round things up a bit for today. But again, talk about our ward and things. But I just want to say, I did that when I was in Narita, and I was looking at that point in time when I went by myself. I had my money spent on places that I'd be spending more time at. I just took it as close to Narita as I could, and saving some money, thinking it's going to be into my trip. It really won't matter. I'll head into the mall, which I love to spend time at the mall that is in Narita. I always find a deal. It seems like the music store that's there always has a sale whenever I arrive. It's one of my favorite things to do is walk around malls and see families and just, get to stretch. And it's a less touristy type of thing to do. And it can truly just be fun. But I ended up finding the cheapest place that I could, and that wasn't a hostel. And let me tell you, there are bad hotels in Japan, and that can come as a shock to people, thinking that you're just going to go there and you're going to always have this amazing service. It's just like everywhere else in the world. The place I ended up staying at was nothing like the pictures. Wallpaper was stapled to the wall. They used carpet squares, not just for the carpeting. The carpet squares actually put down on top of existing carpet. And, there were food left under the coffee tables, that were in the main area. Um, there was mold on the wall in the bathroom, and, I mean, like, significant amounts of mold. And I noticed, because I was there kinda getting some things on top of my bed and things like that, and I noticed that when I turned the light off, I began to hear the scurrying of bugs whenever my lights were off. Because I was actually going to look to take a nap before heading into Narita to go to the mall and kind of walk around. And I said, hey, take a quick, like, 30-minute nap and kind of be ready to go. But as soon as I turned those lights off and I started to hear scurrying, I'd flipped the light on and I saw the bugs running away, decided that I'm going to be sleeping with the lights on and I'm going to be leaving this place. And I will be staying as much time as I can at the mall and in downtown Narita, and then just coming back as things are closing down so I could spend as little time as possible, because I did look, I was like, "Hey, man, I need to find another place." All the places else that I looked at was like the cheapest was $300 per night, and the cheapest place I could find was 300 bucks a night. I ended up having, and it was like none of those looked fantastic either. There were the $300. It was like I'd have to spend like $600. It's like it's literally day of, and you're just getting gouged by the hotel for pricing and things like that. So I ended up talking to the owner of the place and I was like, "Hey, can you call me a cab and so I can get to the mall?" And I just assumed wrongly that I'd be able to get a cab back. This is before like the Go app, and the Go app does not work everywhere, so these kind of things could still happen to you. But kind of, I spent my time at the mall, shopping, eating, walking around the town, and I went back, leaving the mall, and I tried to get a cab ride back. And there were cabs that were outside of the mall. There were cabs even in areas around it, and I thought, I'd be able to go to any of those and kind of point on my phone to where I was looking to go, and I'd be able to get someone to take me back. And being that I could show that the address and the location in Japanese, I felt pretty good about that. It's something I've done in the past, something I've done since then. But when they looked at the map, um, what they saw, was something very removed from any place they might be familiar with, any place like a hotel or things that they normally take people to. And here's this foreigner basically telling them to bring me up into the middle of the night, the mountains, as time is getting late, and just be left out there. And if you think about that, it's not surprising I couldn't find anybody to take me, and I really couldn't communicate to them my situation or that there was something there. If I'd have thought about it, I would have grabbed the owner's like line information, and I could have said, "Hey, when I'm about to leave, I'm going to message you. Can you please talk with my cab driver to get me back?" Something like that. Well, like I said, it was towards the end of my trip, and I was tired, and I took almost nothing with me. And the travel batteries are huge. They were even more so at the time, and they were heavy. So I'm like, I'm not going to take it with me. I'm just, again, going to be dropped off and then back in a taxi and back. Well, it turns out, after not being able to get anything from anybody to get there, I had to start walking, and it was quite a distance. And like it had taken some minutes to get there by taxi, so now it is you walking, you to get back, and I'm talking hours, right? And as I'm walking, it is getting darker and darker, and my battery that had been 100% was far from that and getting very low. And I was truly worried that I would actually be stuck outside overnight in the dark somewhere on these mountains or in a forest. It's an area trying to make my way back to my hotel, and I'd never be seen again. But as I'm talking to you now, luckily I made it, right? Even though I had to sleep with the lights on for the whole time. But my um, battery of my phone ended up dying. But luckily, I was able to get back to where the mountain was that I remember going up. But again, it was dark, and it just was not the place to be on a mountain that had no lighting and cars potentially being able to come. So even though it's the end of your trip, bring those batteries. You're not going to regret it. Okay. It's like at least having those, but you will regret not having them. So basically, yeah, make the trip your own. Going cheap is okay, but read reviews, look at pictures, see if you can find that same place at different sites, and really kind of scroll through and not just go off like the best, like recommended reviews for you, but look at them all. Look at different dates. Make sure you're looking at some current ones. Maybe there's construction going on. Um, it's huge. And like I said, if it's $10, $20, $50, if you're able to do that too, um, whatever it is going to be huge and help pay for your first trip or return trip to Japan. Having something to look forward to can be huge if you're going through a lot. And, just having that vacation to look forward to can do a lot to, add some positivity to your life. And once you go, if you've never been before, you're going to want to go again. And even if it's not traveling to Japan, could just be travel in general. Explore the world. There's a lot to see out there. And, it can easily end up making the most of the time that you have to do so. So, what I'd say right now is this: just go onto your phone, pause the show here in a moment, and set a calendar reminder and make a point of starting your journey. Set something that says, hey, go set up um, a credit union account. Go do whatever you need to and get yourself going and savings for your next trip. If you have any hacks of your own for travel for Japan, reach out to the show and I'll happily share them with listeners of our ever growing community. This community is filled with a lot of great people who have some wonderful ideas, and I'm happy to share those for you. Remember, you can reach out to the show at lostwithoutjapan at gmail.com or on Instagram at lostwithoutjapan, all one word. And do, again, appreciate seeing all the different new people that are around for this time that have ended up coming from the Podranker Award and receiving an award that I wasn't aware of, that I didn't have to pay to be a part of, was huge. And I um, am honored and flattered that to be recognized for basically 5 years of work for day trips. And I recommend you looking into my past catalog. There are Google Maps for those, for locations. Make sure they're still open. Some of the shows are, like I said, 5 years old. But there's a lot of information. There's a lot of availability there for you. Some things to listen, help you dream for, and help keep you motivated, along with some good times episodes and a ton of interviews. I'm going to be actually recording a good times episode later in the week. That'll come out 2 weeks after this one does. And 4 weeks from this Monday, we'll end up having that final alternate things to do in Tokyo before we pick a city less traveled and get back to our day trip episodes that are off that golden route. So, if you've enjoyed today's show, consider supporting us by joining the show's Patreon. And thank you for members of the show who have already donated. It goes a long way. You'll see some extra footage, some content that doesn't make it to the podcast, us hanging out, especially for our good time episodes where it's just us hanging out before we actually click record. For that, some video content and things. It'll all go towards what I'm doing and making what I'm doing even better and be able to bring you more from Japan upon my return. Looks like we're all ready to call it a night before we begin our next adventure as we continue our discussion and exploration of Japan. So, on behalf of Lost Without Japan and the entire crew, I'd like to thank you all for joining us on this trip as we all look forward to seeing you on board again in 2 weeks for the next episode. To everyone out there, Oginki Day. Stay well, my friends.